Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. 2023 was transformative for Palantir as a company and has set them up for success, I believe, in 2024 if things play out in their favor. So with the last Palantir Daily of 2023 and trading day of the year, here are the 5 most crucial events of 2023 in my opinion that sets up Palantir for success in 2024. So first, we have S&P F-class share rule change and Palantir hitting GAAP profitability. So this is for S&P inclusion. When Palantir hit their first GAAP profitable quarter for Q4 2022 results, and these were disclosed back in February of 2023, people started to notice Palantir could possibly hit this. However, this was still with the help of a stepped-up basis around $40 million, so it was kind of a financial engineering that achieved this. And note, this was also before the letter from Alex Karp regarding the F-class shares being allowed. But once we got around to that, we were off to the races, and management started to tout their goals of hitting the S&P inclusion with GAAP profitability. Now, for Q1 2023 earnings, this was when we first saw their legitimate, in some people's eyes, GAAP profitability, being operationally profitable and not needing a stepped-up basis to hit this. And the rest is history, honestly, from there, where investors eagerly awaited each quarter to ensure that we hit that minimum one-set profitability, which I'm okay with, since I'd rather not maximize net income right now and focus on revenue, but just hitting the minimum is good enough. Now, after Q3 2023 earnings, Palantir has met the criteria to be eligible and included in the S&P, and this has not happened yet officially, just so you know, and I don't think the day that it actually happens will be monumental, since the real moment is them achieving the requirements and then just maintaining it from this point on. So sometime in 2024, we'll probably see this. Now, institutions seem to have already been picking up Palantir slowly as we've analyzed the institutional ownership over time, but I think the best outcome from S&P inclusion, at least, is that the reputation and marketing that comes with it. So saying you're big and stable enough to be in the S&P is great for marketing and for customers. Not everyone is all about implementing the leading tech from a startup that can go away due to financial instability or just not being tested enough here and just building up these different metrics. So adding more marketing bullet points like this being in the S&P continues to further legitimize Palantir, and hopefully this pulls through onto potential clients that includes governments and major global enterprises. Then next, we have their artificial intelligence platform being released. Now, at this point, it feels like AIP has actually been around forever. But did you know that it was only just released this year in April and announced by Alex Karp in a letter? Now, right when it was released, ChatGPT has been around for a while, since late 2022 in November. So the regular everyday person has already experienced the possibility of AI through asking questions and getting answers almost like a chatbot. But at least for me personally, AIP sounded like, when it was announced, the enterprise version, but not only making a chatbot, but also used for automation for many internal processes at an organization. And this is ran by actual ontologized data, meaning you can use artificial intelligence to identify opportunities and then actually make informed decisions or changes that aren't necessarily surface level, but rather holistic to how the data is on one end of the organization all the way to the other. Now, I still believe personally the ontology is the true powerhouse of Palantir, because that's what drives the actual value of their other platforms too, like Foundry and Gotham, and now AIP. And we've seen a lot of use cases from previous AIP cons showing the major clients in many industries, so from healthcare, supply chains, even like railroad management, and even more. So we'll keep an eye out for more use cases from clients, but as investors, we still had questions about the scalability and adoption of this new platform, at least when it was released and early on in the year. And we finally got an answer which seems to be working, and for a company like Palantir, you need that sexy poster girl like AIP to grab that attention, especially while artificial intelligence investments are ramping up, and once clients are in, which I think is currently ramping up with AIP Boot Camps, then the true value for customers can be unlocked. And this perfectly transitions to the third major crucial event for Palantir, AIP Boot Camps. AIP was released back in April, and we already had one AIP con with some initial clients who've already been with Palantir here. So utilizing AIP was almost like turning on a switch, where they built and showed off use cases within weeks, which is fast for any large organization. But we wanted to know how this happened for new clients that have never had any Palantir experience. Now, it took a few months, but eventually we get introduced to AIP Boot Camps at the next AIP con. And Ted Mabry showed that slide with 0 to use case in 5 days. And for me personally, I couldn't believe it at first, or at least was skeptical, like there was some setup time needed with weeks of getting data ready. Because if you think about it, this is a go-to-market strategy that appears to need some level of preparation if you're going to make a use case with actual end users attending a boot camp, whom I'm assuming are not Palantir customers already. So it'd be a blank slate. But apparently this strategy is working with the recent numbers touted by management, with the latest with Shyam Sankar, at least from one interview, saying they're aiming for 325 organization boot camps by the end of 2023. But we also saw these unofficial numbers showing off 400 something at some point in December. But either way, depending on the numbers that you look at and the conversion, this can be a big boost in customer counts for Palantir if they're starting to get revenue from these customers, which is one of the requirements to do so in that metric. So in the idea and concept concept of AIP Boot Camps, this was crucial for Palantir, but I'm still waiting to see more results as we go into the new year of 2024 and expect to hear something official at least around the next earnings and maybe before. And then next, we have the official partnership announcement of reconstruction out in Ukraine. Palantir investors were, I'd say, most likely behind Palantir when it came to Ukraine's aid, basically immediately after the invasion back in 2022. Of course, there's going to be some detractors, and we knew it would be some time before we saw any indication of revenue being collected, but understood the possibilities of having the chance to be the software infrastructure of rebuilding a whole country, as well as showcasing their strengths and values to all of NATO and surrounding countries. So I think this partnership announcement brought some ease to investors' minds that we are moving in that direction, and all throughout 2023, we do get little snippets of working with Baltic countries that happen to be NATO members too. But this is one of those large implications that can be set up a major presence out in Eastern Europe, and even if just targeting systems, it's still a possible foot in the door for other militaries nearby in that region. Now, further than this announcement itself, it's been pretty sparse, with one article saying Palantir has only been paid about $1 million-ish, and that's from the US paying for their help for Ukraine. So I'm thinking this is still going to take a lot more time here, especially on the commercial and reconstruction side. But we also get snippets of this reconstruction with Sham Sankar, acknowledging that their work with the demining as well as the AIP demo that was released by Ukraine's own Ministry of Digital Transformation. And we may see more use cases in the future here which continue to build the value proposition of Palantir, being the infrastructure that the government can use to build out specific use cases, because it's not like Palantir is selling them a specific product for a use case, but rather allowing the client themselves to build on what's important and valuable to them. So it's not like nothing is being done on the reconstruction side of Ukraine, but rather I think the war is still going on, priorities still remain on the fire on their own land, but no doubt as long as the Ukrainian state still exists at the end of this all, which I believe is highly likely, even if some territory is lost, the need to rebuild infrastructure and their economy still needs to happen, and hopefully alongside with Palantir. And then next, we have the NHS deal. Now, even though this wasn't the biggest deal in the world, but still a major one in my opinion for at least what it means. The NHS FDP contract getting awarded after delays and so many hit pieces, which are still continuing even after awarding the contract. It was a major relief for investors to finally get something conclusive or closure around this deal. Now, the touted amount throughout the year was for 360 plus 60 plus 60 over 7 years, but seems that the finalized deal is around 180 million for 3.5-ish years right now, and up to 330 million pounds for 7 years. And as I've noted from finding on the UK's government contracting website, and this is probably going to be split up amongst contractors as well, but regardless, if Palantir can win a contract in the UK, despite this very public backlash from the media, then I think that this is much more telling on how valuable that they are and the improvements that they can actually bring. Now, I want to put a caveat that just because the media seems loud, I think most everyday folks out in the UK don't even know a couple of the many vendors helping to run the NHS, so with Palantir, this might even be the same case in that it's overblown. But from a US perspective and someone invested in Palantir, every article I can find out there usually points to the Peter Thiel, Donald Trump backing spy company narrative. Now, more importantly, what this means for Palantir is that they finally get a chance to cook up in the UK's NHS and able to showcase if they can bring real improvements and quantitative metrics, which in the end are the most important to justify the contract here over a large scale. Now, if things play out correctly and they actually make valuable transformation for the NHS across the system and not just at a select hospital or trust, then this is an opportunity for them to lock down either further contracts into the future, not only for the FDP, which is also up for renewal, of course, in several years from now, but also for branching projects onto the NHS here, because the FDP is pretty strict in its contractual scope. So if there are more projects not utilizing the FDP, then these are opportunities for Palantir to be the powerhouse of those as well. But that's just my speculation there. And similar to Ukraine, if they can showcase the other health systems around the world, especially those ran by governments like Canada coming to mind, but other European nations as well. But hopefully this can be the use case that everyone can lift up there and see and give the chance to Palantir and get it implemented into their own countries. So 2023 was a major year, but all these still roll into 2024, and hopefully we get a pleasant surprise with expansions or revenue collection or even completely new things from Palantir that will change the trajectory of the company in the positive direction. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Palantir Daily in 2024.